it worth it? Oh, it was worth it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get going. It's just about 12 o'clock. We had like 17, 18 people scheduled to come today, but I think with last night's storm, did you guys see that storm last night?
Oh, yeah.
How crazy was that, right? Our building in Roseland, we had actually to cancel a 6 o'clock meeting last night. Our building in Roseland went out of power. We're on generator power, so we just canceled and rescheduled. That came in pretty quick. So we got like 5 or 6 people call this morning to say, I have water in my basement, I have this, I have that. So we're going to be a really, probably this will be it, maybe 1 or 2 more people come in. So we're going to do it a little bit different today. Normally I don't allow questions or anything throughout the presentation, I'll just answer them at the end. But since we're a smaller crowd, absolutely we'll let you guys ask any question you want, stop me, just raise your hand real quick and I'll answer the question. If we're running short on time, because I know we want to, get lunch and all that, I will stop the question and I'll say, hey, I'll answer them, when we're done during lunch, okay? So with that, I want to thank you all for coming, for taking the time out of your day to come here, Seasons 52. We appreciate that. You guys have met already Luke and Ted from my office. Luke's my son. Ted's my brother-in-law. My name is John Papa. I'm the president of DPS Advisors. Started this practice with my dad 39 years ago. My father was a beautician his whole life, and when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be an NFL football player. And when my father couldn't cut hair anymore, he went to sell insurance, life insurance. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. My 5'10", 180-pound Italian kid's not going to make it in the NFL. He goes, why don't you come intern in our insurance agency? So I did that the summer before my senior year in college, and I sold life insurance right out of college. I hated it, but I liked investments and financial advisory stuff. So we built the practice where we would go to small businesses, pizzerias, body shops, any company, 25 employees or less, and go inside there, build 401k plans, retirement plans, because we were doing what everybody else was doing at the time, and telling everyone, putting max amount of money in your 401k is the best investment ever. And now, 25, 30 years later, when our clients got older, the big problem we have is, how do I get my money out with the least amount of taxes? So it's not as great of an investment as it was. And I was part of the problem because I was telling you to max it out. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. We're going to talk, 3 main topics. We talk about Social Security. What does everyone want to know about? Social Security, taxes, and investing in the market at our age now, because I'm your age too. I just turned 61. Today, 15? Yep. The 7th, I turned 61, so I'm in this bracket as well. I can't believe that. But how do you invest when you're either close to retirement, in retirement, or about to retire? What type of investment strategies should we be doing? So those are the topics we're going to hit. Hopefully, we invited you through some sort of social media advertising, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, and hopefully you came here to learn some information about that. When I started this practice with my dad, we came up with a motto of educate and empower people so they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. So hopefully we're going to educate you a little bit. You're going to get a nice lunch afterwards, and then we're also going to ask you to fill out a form, and if you want to take us up on a no obligation, stress-free environment of doing a second opinion or giving you a second look at your current investment strategy, whether it's tax planning, market volatility, whatever, we'll offer that to you at the end of the presentation. So with that, this sheet that we gave everybody here, if you're a couple, you can fill this out. If you're not, I need this back from everybody because of the IRS. So whether you take us up on our offer or not, I need to collect this sheet from everybody in this room. Okay, so if you can, fill this out, and we'll give you some time again at the end of the presentation as well. So with that being said, let's get into our presentation. So this is a compliance screen, and what has to be up here for like 2 minutes. You probably can't read it, and not that it's not done on purpose, but what we do here is say basically, you're not going to make any decisions today based on anything we talk about because it's not specific to you. We're going to talk in general today. Any decisions you ever make, if working with us, are going to be in our office or I'm in your house and we're doing something that's specific to your situation. So we're going to talk in general today. I'm going to throw out a lot of different ideas and strategies, but you are not deciding to do anything by what we talk about today. Okay? That's what that says. So why'd you accept the invitation? No, the food's good here. The people are great. The food's not that great. Hopefully you're here for education, right? And I want you to ask questions, stop me. You don't have to, feel uncomfortable. Just, it's not a I'll answer, you can stop me, is what I'll say. So don't worry about that. Ask any question you want. I gave you my background already, so you don't need to hear that. We're independent licensed fiduciaries. Has anybody heard of that term, fiduciary? It's all across the financial advisory field, okay? A fiduciary is held to a different standard when you're managing a client's assets, okay? And I always use the example of, or the analogy of Home Depot. Let's say you were hanging a picture in your house and you needed a hammer to hang a picture, right? And you went to one of your big box firm advisors, whether you're with, one of the big firms. I'm being recorded, so you really can't say the firm's names, but you know who they are. And they sold you a 20-pound hammer. You asked for a hammer, they sold you a 20-pound hammer. That's a suitable recommendation. That advisor will never get in trouble. If I did that, and Luke's a licensed fiduciary, Ted's a licensed fiduciary, and so am I. DPS Advisors is registered with the SEC and FINRA as a registered investment advisor. So we're licensed fiduciaries. If you filed a complaint against me because me or Luke or Ted sold you a 20-pound hammer and you filed a complaint and the SEC comes into my office and says, well, wait a minute, they asked you for a hammer, you sold them a hammer. Did you ask them any questions about their health? Any questions about can they swing a 20-pound hammer? Did you ask them if they have any heart issues, orthopedic issues, any medical conditions I need to know about? The suitable standard of care for clients is down here. The fiduciary standard of care is way up here. So in that scenario, if I sold you a 20-pound hammer and you did have a heart issue or an orthopedic problem or a shoulder or an elbow or whatever, I'm probably going to get fined for that by the SEC because I didn't provide you with the fiduciary standard of care. So if you get one thing out of this presentation today, it's going to be you should be working with a licensed fiduciary. Okay? And it's really simple to find out if you are. You call your advisor and say, hey, I was at a presentation the other day. If you don't want to tell me you're at a presentation, just say, hey, I heard the other day about this licensed fiduciary thing. Are you a fiduciary? And if they say yes, follow up with one more question. Say, okay, great, which one? Certified financial planner or registered investment advisor? Those are the only two designations that can legally say they're licensed fiduciaries. We're registered investment advisors, licensed by the SEC in the state of New Jersey. So if they say yes, that's great. I want to know which one. If they don't answer that question, you got a problem, because they're probably not licensed fiduciaries. And the fact that they would tell you they are, and they're really not, that's an even bigger problem. What else are you not telling me inside my portfolio? Okay, so we're licensed fiduciaries. I don't know if you guys watch Fox Business or CNBC or MSNBC, but they have all kinds of different financial shows. Fox Business has a show on Sundays called The Wealth Council. At 2 o'clock on Sunday, they bring advisors from across the country to talk about retirement planning issues going on today. I was asked to be on that show on 5 different episodes. So I've been on the Fox Business channel on The Wealth Council. CNBC has a show called the Worldwide Exchange Program. It's broadcast in 90 countries. I was asked to be on that as a retirement planning specialist. I was on a segment on that show in the last year or two. MSNBC have been on that show, again, as a retirement planning expert. New Jersey 12 Network, I was in their studios on their show talking about estate planning issues and how it affects people in retirement. So I have an extensive background in this field. The show you were watching before, the sound was off because I forgot my speaker today, so I rushed to get here and I forgot to throw it in the back of my car, so the sound wasn't great, so I apologize for that. But every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on New Jersey 12 Network, we are on, it's a show called The Papa Report. and they rebroadcast it at 6:30 at night after the news. Every other Sunday night, we just started about a month or so ago, I'm on WPIX, CW11, 6:30 Sunday nights, every other Sunday. My show for a half hour is called The Papa Report, is on a New York station, so that's pretty cool, pretty psyched about that. I've written articles for Benzinga, Market Watch. I wrote a book called Avoiding the Retirement Traps. I'm in the process of finishing my second book called The Intelligent Investor. And we start with that book with young kids. Because my other book is more about what we're going to talk about today for people in this room. But I want to try and fix the problem before it becomes a problem. And what it was guys like Luke or kids like Luke who are 24, 25 years old, just out of college, what should they be doing? It shouldn't be going into the regular 401k. It's got to be, there's other options, and that's what they should. So we're starting that book. I'm almost done with it, and have that book will be out pretty soon. We don't sell it. We give it away as gifts and stuff to clients and things like that. So I have a pretty extensive background in this field. I'm a licensed fiduciary. I told you that already. I told you my show. I also do a radio show every Sunday at 2 o'clock on WOR 710. We broadcast that show I record it right from my office. We have a radio room in our office in Roseland. It's pretty cool. And I broadcast that, I record it with Morgan Patrick, my host, and we replay it on...
Just take a picture of it.
Sure. I replay it on Sunday afternoons at 2 o'clock, WOR 710. So if you're ever listening to the radio, which I'm shocked, we get so many calls from people off the radio show. I didn't think anybody listened to the radio anymore, but we get a lot of calls from it. So if you're hanging around on Sunday around 2 o'clock, throw on WOR 710, you'll hear me and Morgan Patrick talking about the stuff we're going to talk about today. Okay? And I wasn't too smart with how to name my shows. I just called it The Papa Report. I thought that was pretty catchy, you know? Okay. We'll hit Social Security first. And I forgot to also mention that if you have your cell phones in your pocket or wallet or pocketbook or whatever, just put them on silent if you don't mind. I put mine on silent because the rings sometimes gets a little annoying. Okay, Social Security. Most people ask us, we'll give you some basic information about it, but most people want to know, number one, is it going to be there for me? Number two, when should I turn it on? Those are the two main questions we get about Social Security. So, have you heard, it's a political question, basically. And we're not going to get political here because both sides of the aisle, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, both sides of the aisle use it when they're not in power against the other one, and they'll say, you're spending so much money, you're gonna make Social Security go broke. You're going to make Medicare and Medicaid go broke. Have you heard that statement before? Both sides do it. Both sides say it, right? Well, that's a complete lie. Okay, it's a complete lie. Social Security is a system that was created in 1935 by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was a system that, it sounds like it was for the citizens of the United States, but it was really a money maker for the government. You want to know why? So what he came up with was, hey, why don't we create this retirement system? We'll make the citizens pay into it through their pay, and employers match a percentage of it in FICA, and we'll collect all this money, and we're going to pick age 65 as retirement. Do you know what the life expectancy was in 1935?
61?
59. So they didn't expect to pay out hardly any benefits and collect money from citizens and don't have to say they're raising taxes. It was a money maker for the government. Until when? Well, medical technology. We started living longer. So now we're living longer, and there's more people collecting Social Security than there are paying into Social Security. Okay? So, but that doesn't mean it's going to go broke. Because it's a pay-as-you-go system. Meaning, if you're working and you're paying into Social Security, that's not for your benefit. That's for the benefit of the people who are collecting Social Security. So, unfortunately for Luke, he's paying for all the people collecting Social Security, and then when I turn it on, he'll be paying in for when I'm going to collect, which is great. So all the younger people are paying into the system so the older people who are collecting can receive their benefits. So what does going broke actually mean? It means that if they don't make any changes to the system, our benefits are going to be reduced by around 2035 or 2036. What do I mean by that, right? So it's probably about 80% of the benefit if they don't make any changes. So going broke means you won't get the full benefit that you put into the system that you expect to get. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to make some changes. Now, they're not going to, they could possibly increase the wage tax. You know, you pay taxes into Social Security up to a certain amount of money. And in 2025, that wage tax maximum is 176. So any income you make up to 176, you're paying into Social Security. Anything over 176, you don't pay into Social Security for that anymore. Okay, that's the maximum. So do I see them raising that? Yeah, I do. It was 168 in 2024, it'll be 176 in 2025. Life expectancy today is probably upper 70s, possibly, maybe almost 80 life expectancy. How many people you hear living to 90, 100, right? So many people are living longer. They only raised the retirement age from 65 2 years to 67. So do I see a politician saying, hey, you know what, for the younger generation, your retirement age, full retirement age is going to be 70 years old. That'll help the system as well. That'll, fund the system longer, okay? The only way, so when you hear these political stuff going on, and then you hear them say that you're making the Social Security system broke, the only way Social Security can go broke is if every person who works in the United States quits their job. So everyone has to stop working. That means no money's going into the system. Then Social Security will go broke. So until that day happens, they're lying. It's a political football. It's a joke, okay? So what are some of the basics? You could turn on Social Security at 62 years old. That's the earliest, right? And if you turn it on at 62, you're probably going to collect about 75% of what you paid into the system, okay? Full retirement age, depending on what year you were born, falls between 66 and 67. I was born in 1964. I just turned 61 years old. My full retirement age is 67 years old. So some people in this room might be 66 in 2 months, 66 in 3 months. That's your full retirement age. That's where you're going to collect 100% of your benefit. If you wait to 70, you actually get an 8% increase every year from full retirement age to age 70 if you delay. Okay? These are math equations. People always ask me, when should I turn it on? When's the best time? And pure math will show you a math equation, whether it's 62, 67, or 70. But you have to factor in some other things. Life isn't just math. Life is emotion. Financially, can I afford to? Health. If I'm expected to live a long life and have a long longevity in my family, you have to factor all those questions into your decision about when do I turn on Social Security, okay? So in a purely math situation, we're going to give you that in a second, which three of this would be the best to turn it on. Other basic information, Social Security always gives you a cost of living adjustment, and over the last 20 years, that's averaged 2.6%. Since 1975, it's averaged actually 3.69. So there was bigger cost of living adjustments earlier on than there are in the last 20 years. If you paid in only the minimum into Social Security wage tax every year, the minimum benefit you could collect is $28.31. Full retirement age, it would be $4,018, and the maximum benefit you could ever collect at age 70 would be $5,100. That's the most anybody can ever collect from Social Security. So these are basic information. Anybody have any questions about that? I explained it that good? Okay. No questions? Okay. So, we said it's a math equation, right? So let's talk about a hypothetical names, but are real clients of ours. Ron and Nancy. So, Ron's 60 years old, Nancy's 58. Ron's life expectancy is 85 years old, Nancy is 90. Women have a longer life expectancy than men. We all know that, right? I'm not going to give you my opinion as to why that happens, but we all know that happens. But actually, my wife's not here, so I actually could say it, but I'm being recorded, so I'm not gonna. Okay? You guys can laugh a little bit. We like to have fun with this. What's that?
By choice.
By choice, yeah. We like to have fun with this stuff. You don't have to get, it's not all crazy, serious. We like to have fun in our office, right? So, Ron lives to 85, Nancy lives to 90. If they turned on Social Security at 62 years old, Ron's going to collect $1,906, Nancy would collect $1,410, and cumulatively, if they lived to 85 and 90, they would have collected $1,006,000 in benefits over that lifetime, right? If they lived that long. If they go to full retirement age, which is 67 years old for each of them, Ron's now going to collect $3,011, Nancy $2,235, but they're turning it on at 67 years old. So in that time frame, they're going to collect $1,009,000. But you're like, wait, John, how could that be? They're delaying by 5 years. They're not going to collect any benefits, but they're collecting more money, right? They're much higher benefit. And then if you could wait to 70, if they start the benefits at 70, Ron's collecting $37.92 and Nancy's collecting $28.15. The cumulative benefits are over $2.1 million. So in a pure math equation, it pays to delay if you can. Okay, but it's not really a math question. You have to factor in health. How's your health? Who do you talk to about that? Your doctor. So you just met with a financial advisor, or heard a financial advisor tell you should talk to your doctor about turning on Social Security. Because if they know your health just as well as you do, if there's not a really good chance you're going to live the life expectancy because you have some health issues that you just can't you're dealing with, then maybe you turn it on earlier. Or financially, if I can't afford not to turn it on, then you turn it on. This is a pure math equation, but life doesn't work just with math. Okay, so it really depends on the person's situation on when you should turn it on or not. Some other things that we talk about. If you do turn it on at 62 years old, you're below full retirement age. If you turn it on and still continue to work and make over $25,000, for every $2 you earn, they're going to hold back $1 of Social Security benefits. You get penalized if you're not full retirement age. If you wait till 67, you can make $1 billion a year in income and it'll have no effect on your Social Security. If you turn it on before full retirement age, there will be a penalty against you. Yes, ma'am.
When you start to collect,
Yes.
will the government tax your money?
Yes. Yes. So again, not being political, but doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, because when it was first created, taxes were not applied to Social Security. But then during Ronald Reagan's presidency, he implemented a 50% tax. So you could pay taxes on 50% of your benefit. And then when Bill Clinton was in office, so it doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, he increased that tax rate from 50 to 85. So you are taxed on Social Security. Yes, sir.
Question was, so at 62, if you take the Social Security, then we do have to pay, it is tax bracket. They will hold some money for Thomas.
Repeat the question.
You said 62 if you take the Social Security.
If you turn it on before full retirement age, 62, yes.
62. Then they will find something.
So what they'll do is, if you're earning more than $25,000, they will subtract for every $2 you earn over $25,000. They will subtract $1 of benefit out of your Social Security check that you get every month.
Over 25,000.
Income over $25,000.
That wouldn't be considered tax, would it?
No, that's a penalty, is what that is. So that's a penalty.
You're taxed as well. Right.
And you're still taxed on it, and you're penalized as well. Any other questions about that real quick? Okay. So really, it's in a math situation, it says I'm gonna wait, right? We're all living longer. We think we're all living longer, right? We're not living shorter. Our life expectancies are increasing. So you live, now we're saying he dies at 85 and 90. If they live longer than that, the benefit's even more, because it's gonna keep paying out, right? So pure math, it pays the delay. Factor in life situations, it really depends on what your situation is, okay? And I've advised people, to turn it on at full retirement age if they were planning on waiting to 70 because of health situations. I've tried not to turn it on prior to 59 full retirement age because I don't want to be penalized, because a lot of people are still working, they're not retired yet. So if you don't need the money, then don't do it. You know, you really should. Okay? Here's the best part of the presentation I really like doing, right? So, yes, yes.
What if we retire but we don't collect the money? Is that the possibility?
Yeah, you have a choice to turn it on or not. You don't have to turn it on when you retire. If you don't need the money, let it sit. I mean, you're not going to be paying into the system. It'll still grow a little bit, but you're not paying into the system. So it won't grow as much as if you were still working. But if you don't need it, I would let it go to at least full retirement age, because you never know, you might get a part-time job. Because one of the things you do in retirement, you have to have a game plan emotionally, because you can't just sit around the house and do nothing. So we talk to a lot of people about the emotional factor of retirement, being mentally ready to retire. Because typically we've worked all our lives. You're probably in a upper management leadership role after working in the workforce for 35, 40 years. You have a purpose in life. You get up every day, you go to work, people report to you, you have responsibilities, and the day you retire, you wake up and go, holy crap. No one, what am I doing with my life? And I tell you, we see a lot of people a couple of months later, go have some fun, a couple of months later, they're like, I'm going to get a part-time job. I'm going to Home Depot. I like working with my hands. I'm going to Home Depot. I like golf. I'm going to a driving range. Just to do something, to get out of the house, be mentally active and physically active. So if you do that, and you're going to collect Social Security before full retirement age, you're going to get penalized for that. So, it depends on the situation. Okay? So how many people here, we talked earlier when I said taxes on qualified plans. Who has an IRA, 401k, 403b? You guys saved in these retirement accounts through work or just IRAs throughout your whole life. You put money into these things. I need a show of hands. Everybody in this room have one of those accounts? Okay. Who here is talking to their accountant about how can I pay the least amount of taxes on my IRA, 401k? Who meets with their accountant in like July, August, September to come up with a strategy to pay the least amount? Who meets with their accountant? Anybody? Okay. If you have a financial advisor, is your financial advisor talking to you about strategies on how to get your money out of these tax-deferred accounts in the least possible taxable environment? Who's meeting with their advisor to do that? Nobody? Okay, so if you wait, so these accounts are called tax-deferred accounts. That means you don't pay taxes now, you're deferring the tax till later, right? So I went into your company, because that's what I did, and said, hey, you guys, the government created this 401k plan, because the pensions are over, unless you're a government employee, a teacher, police, a hospital, unless you're one of those. Most private companies don't offer pensions anymore. 401k started in 1978. So we would go into companies and say, hey, take money out of your pay, save it in an account, you'll get a current year tax deduction for your contribution, and you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. So defer all the taxes till later when you're in a lower bracket. And that's what I did. For 15 years, went into companies and set up these plans. And then started realizing when people were retiring, they were just retiring with a Social Security payment like my grandfather did. My grandparents retired, made less money than they were working because they went on Social Security, and that was it. Today, nobody is in a lower tax bracket at retirement. The tax brackets are higher. They're paying more taxes now. I just sat with a guy this morning in a meeting, and we figured out, he turns on a small little pension, his Social Security between him and his wife, and dividends he collects on his portfolio, he's making almost as much money than working. He's not in a lower tax bracket, and he's got all this money sitting in an IRA or 401k. We got to figure out how to get the money out, because I'm going to tell you what the problem is going to be, okay? So if your accountant's not talking to you about it, and your advisor's not talking to you about it, that means your game plan is going to be, I'm going to wait till require a minimum distribution age, right? And that's age 73 now. Throughout most of our working lives, it was 70 and a half. You remember that age, 70 and a half? That's when you have to start taking money out of your IRA. Well, now they've increased it to 73, okay? And I'm gonna show you, if you play that game, and once you get to RMD age, the IRS got you. Because it's gonna be, you can't stop that plan. So here's what happens, okay? In fact, it's so important of a topic for us and our clients, we built a website called dpstaxbill.com. You might want to write that down. dpstaxbill.com. You can go to that website, plug in some information, your age, your name, how much you have in your IRA, 401k, what's your growth rate on it, and what's your tax rate, and a click of a button, it'll tell you exactly how much taxes you're going to pay on your IRA or 401k or 403b. And some solutions to that, okay? But I'll give you the numbers right now. So let's say you're 65 years old, you have $500,000 sitting in an IRA, 401k, 403b, one of those tax deferred accounts, right? And you're not getting any advice or any help as to when you should take the money out of this thing. You're gonna wait till RMD age, 73. Because that's pretty much what everybody's doing, right? You're gonna delay it as long as you
They
can.
didn't change it to 75 or something.
In 2035, it's going to, not now, 2035, it's going to 75 years old. Okay, so yeah, it did move up, all right? I mean, just think about the term tax deferred account. Do I want to tax defer an account when tax rates are going to be higher or when tax rates are going to be lower? Lower, right? So I get so excited and I missed the train. I missed the slides. Before I get into the scenario, our country is almost $37 trillion in debt, right? Almost $37 trillion. We pay more money in interest payments on our debt than we do in our national defense. Think about that, how scary that is. We're $37 trillion in debt, and our country makes no products for profit to reduce the debt in our country. So where do you think tax rates are going? The only way our country raises revenue is through taxes, right? So if they want to knock the debt down, which eventually they're going to have to do because then our country will go bankrupt and there'll be all kind of issues if that happens, right? So they're going to have to raise taxes. They're going to have to raise the tax rates. You guys, I mentioned Ronald Reagan before, right? You guys remember what Ronald Reagan did before he was president of the United States? He was an actor. He was an actor.
Very good one.
Very good actor.
He was what?
I didn't think he was.
Not a very good one, right? They didn't win any Academy Awards. But he played a lot of cowboy movies, right?
Yeah. He was like
In
the Errol Flynn.
Whatever. Whether he was good or bad, that's an opinion. We don't care about that.
Yeah.
No, I'm teasing. No, but he, in 1939 or 1940, I forget the exact year, he did a movie and he was paid $1 million for his salary for that movie. You know how much taxes he paid on that $1 million salary in 1939 or 40?
90%.
$900,000 was the highest tax bracket back in the 1939 and 40. Do you don't think, and we weren't $37 trillion in debt in 1939, but we are now. So you don't think the tax brackets will change a little bit to offset the debt that we have? Probably. Every CPA we talk to and tax attorney we talk to are all in agreement. Tax rates are going to go up. They're going to have to. Maybe not in the next 4 years because we just codified that tax bill, but in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, when we're really collecting a lot of money out of these tax deferred accounts, you're basically tax deferring into a higher bracket. So if you're in a tax deferred account, do you want to take the money out when tax rates are higher or when they're low? Low, right? That's right now. We're in the lowest taxable environment any one of us are going to be in the rest of our lives. Definitely him. In the rest of our lives, we are right now in the lowest tax bracket. So we should be doing tax planning strategies now, not 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Yes.
So you're saying 401s are not a good vehicle?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to give you some numbers.
Because you're going to contribute tax-free. And
No. Stop that word right there. It's not tax-free. It's tax deferred.
Tax deferred. And then when you retire, You're gonna pay a lot more taxes on that money to withdraw it.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm gonna give you the numbers.
You're gonna be in a high tax bracket.
Yeah, exactly. So what am I saying? Let me give you the numbers and you can answer that question yourself, right? So let's go back to this situation. $500,000 sitting in an IRA, 65-year-old person, not gonna touch it for 8 more years, till 73. Gonna keep tax deferring it because his accountants tell him to do that. And his advisors tell him to do that, right? And he's gonna earn 7% in his portfolio. Not a crazy interest rate, right? So that $500,000 IRA at 73 years old is now worth $860,000. Okay? Now the game begins. 73, RMDs kick in, he has to take out money. That first year he's got to take out 35 grand, about 4% of the value of the IRA. And every year, 37,000, 38,000, 42,000, 45,000, 48,000, every year pulling money out and paying taxes on that income. Added to Social Security, if he has a pension, dividends on a portfolio, rental income, just add it all up. He's not in a lower tax bracket. If he lives to 90 years old, because we talk about longevity, he lives to 90, he would have taken out $1.1 million in distributions over that period of time, right? So that's 17-year period. He takes out $1.1 million in distributions, and let's not even change the tax rate, 24%. He's going to pay $265,000 in taxes on his $1.1 million of distributions. Does that make sense? You guys understand that number the numbers I just gave you? Nothing doesn't make sense, right? It's not the end of the game, though. The problem is when he dies at 90, there's still $1 million left in that IRA that's going to go to his kids. They now have to collect this $1 million IRA, and let's say me and Luke are his 2 kids. We collect $500,000 apiece. I can't delay it till later. I have 10 years, but I have to withdraw that $1 million. So he gets 500, I get 500. We have to take out $50,000 a year each in our prime working years, probably making the most money we're going to make in our lives salary-wise, and now add 50 grand a year from distributions from the IRA I inherited from my parents. They're going to pay taxes on $1 million of distributions. 30% tax bracket, I'm not even going to increase it by a lot. That puts them in a 30% bracket. They're going to pay $310,000 in taxes. So your IRA that's worth $500,000 at 65 years old, you and your kids are going to pay $575,000 in income taxes to the IRS. Does that sound like a great plan to you? Sounds like robbery. And the IRS didn't put 1 ounce of effort into creating that $500,000 IRA.
So
Not
what's the
one.
other option?
So hold on. So what if I was able to show you, what's that?
What's the option for the young people?
What was that? What if I was, the young people aren't in the room. Older people are in the room. I need options for you guys first. Then we'll talk about him, your kids and grandkids. What if I could show you a way, now we had 8 years to go, 65 to 73. What if I could show you a way where we could collect the same amount of income at 73 and going to 90, and then pass on the same amount of income going to 90, going to the kids in that 10-year window. But instead of you and your family paying $575,000 in taxes, we only pay $150,000 in taxes. Would you be interested in that? Why isn't your accountant telling you about that? Because it's out there. It's easy. We do it every day. Why isn't your accountant telling you that? Why isn't your current advisor, who's managing your $500,000 portfolio, talking to you about ways to pay the least amount of taxes on your 401k or IRA? Why aren't they doing that?
I don't live to it.
What's that?
I
Less
don't.
money for them.
How? Why not? They're still managing the ops.
I
So
they don't know,
I
or
think
the other thing is.
they're not qualified, right? They're not qualified to talk. Exactly.
I
So if
think
you're,
a lot of them are talking about it,
yeah.
about how to save taxes. Yeah, I think that's a big thing for everyone.
Just happened to be that nobody in this room, it didn't happen for you guys because no one raised their hand when I said, who's talking to your accountant or your advisor?
They didn't even.
Nobody, so there are solutions. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna give you,
Advisors at those big box firms that we're not naming right now, they're not even allowed to talk about
That's-
tax planning.
I just put some money.
That's
in
true.
That I know when I leave it to my kids, it'll be tax-free.
okay, cool.
Because I
What
don't
kind-
wanna leave them any, money that they're
Right.
gonna have to pay 50% on it.
So, we'll talk about that. Personal stuff, we'll talk about that afterwards. But yeah, there are things you can do today to pass on tax-free assets. There's a lot of things you can do. And the fact that you're not doing them leads you to believe that, hey, we're fun people, we're not gonna stress you out, we're not gonna force you to do anything. Come get an analysis and say, hey, how can I get the same amount of income and cut my tax bill by a third? Because I'm certainly not gonna tell you that today how to do it. You're gonna have to come to my office and we're gonna just spread it out and show you exactly how we do it. We do it every day. Okay, every day. So at least on that sheet of paper, you all wrote down that you have tax deferred accounts. You all wrote down that none of you are doing tax planning strategies. And I just showed you or told you about a way where we can cut your tax bill by a third, 2/3, and only pay a third in taxes. So every one of you should be saying, it's worth a half-hour meeting in Roseland to figure out how do we do this, right? That's our opportunity, that's our offer to you guys. Come learn how to pay a third in taxes. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And that's what we do every day because we're retirement planning experts. I specialize in working with people who are 50 years old and above. And we learned how to do the strategies. I learned how to implement things like that. We do it every day. Young kids today, you asked the question before, young kids today, go into Roth.
Going to a Roth.
Roth 401k, Roth
I
IRA.
think that you should pay your taxes now and
Exactly.
don't put it away to.
And not care what tax rates are
Exactly.
40
So you
years
get
down the
it
road.
Tax-free.
So I gave you an answer to a question. So where do we think tax rates are going? I should have went through these slides as I was talking, but I didn't. So tax rates we think are going up, right? So what are your options? Listen, I've been dealing with this age group for a really long time now. What's the one thing that you guys don't like to do? Change. I don't like to do change because it scares you, right? I don't know why, but if I showed you a way to pay $150 instead of $575, it's going to involve change. You can't keep doing what you're doing and have the results. So it involves change. And I understand change is hard for people in this group. So we'll explain it to you as simple as possible and show you the advantages and the pros and cons. And because we're fiduciaries, no one's forcing anybody to do anything. Here's your options. My job is to educate and empower you so you can make a better decision with your hard-earned money. I do that every day. Okay? So you could do nothing. You could pay some taxes now. You can contribute to Roth. You can convert. You can use life insurance. I even mention the word life insurance to some people and they freak out. I'm like, what are you freaking out for? Okay? How about I showed 2 retired teachers who don't need their 403B how to pass on $5 million in tax-free assets to their kids using life insurance. And you hate the word, and people hate the word life insurance. It's the purpose of the insurance. It depends. So that's, my job is to explain all the options and you pick what's best for you. I don't care what you do. Or you could stay where you are. You could do that too, that's an option. We're not, I'm doing this way too long to force anybody to do anything. But I want to educate you so you can make a better decision. That's what we do. The thing that nobody really talks about, I'll spend a few minutes on. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So inflation, right? Inflation's a big issue. Everyone, they're advertising inflation rates at like 3% today. Who really thinks that's true? There's no way inflation's 3%. Not living up here. A steak dinner here is crazy price. Capitol Grill next door, it's even worse. It ain't 3%. It's more like 6 or 8%, probably double digits, right? So at a 6% inflation rate, here's why it affects people in this room. Because if you're on a fixed income, Social Security, a small little pension, RMD, dividends on a portfolio, and you don't have income or salary to increase your income, you're on fixed income, inflation will crush your income stream. Because at a 6% inflation rate, your expenses are going to double in 8 years at 6% inflation rate. So think about that. We're living longer. If you're 65 years old, you're gonna live 25 years to 90. That means your expenses are gonna double 3 times. 8, 8, and 8. If your expenses are $4,000 a month, they're gonna go to $8,000 a month. 8,000 goes to $16,000. And then by the time you're 90, they're $32,000. And we're on fixed incomes. Social Security, dividends, pension maybe, and RMDs and IRAs. You have to figure out an increasing income plan in retirement. You can't just stay on a fixed income. So most people come in and have all their money sitting in investments, and it's going up and down like the stock market. And what's the one thing you do when the stock market goes down? You don't take your income because you're afraid you're going to run out of money. And you probably will if you do that. So we have to figure out strategies how to spread out your assets and take income from different buckets and invest them smart that way. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a second. So inflation, you better be prepared for inflation. Right? So market volatility, that leads us right to the last topic, market volatility. Why is market volatility different for the people in this room? Because guys like Luke, who are 25 years old and just starting out and saving money, you want market volatility. You want the market to go down because you're buying more shares. All of us, when the markets went down, we were contributing in that 401k out of our paychecks. We were buying more shares of the companies or funds that we owned. When the markets turned back around, you had more to come back around into. It's great. But when you retire and you're forced to do RMDs or you're taking money out for income, you're not investing anymore. You're taking money out. And it's a completely different ballgame. Because now if you take money out when markets go down, you're going to run a really good chance of running out of money. And that is the biggest thing we get when people come into our office. They say, I don't want to run out of money and worry about relying on my kids to live in retirement. That is the number, because I ask, what's your number one fear? Don't want to rely on my kids. And I'm like, I agree 1,000%. Neither do I. Okay?
Be a quick way to lose weight.
Exactly. So, we're going to talk a little bit about market volatility and why it really affects people in this room. So, everybody remember 3 years ago, 2022, we have that 60-40 balanced portfolio. Your advisors got you 60% in equities, 40% in bonds, and told you you're going to be safe, right? You're going to protect yourself. You're not going to get hurt too bad. Everybody remember that? Okay, if you have that, do you remember in 2022, that account went down 25%? Because bonds don't work inverse of stocks. Like when stocks go down, bonds don't go up. When stocks go up, bonds go down. They don't work like that. That's a complete lie. Bonds work based on interest rates. And interest rates were at 0 from 2008 when the recession hit till 2022. They were at near 0. You guys know it. Your CD stunk. Your savings account interest rate stunk, right? You had got no interest. And then 2022, the Federal Reserve finally said, we're actually going to raise rates. But what happened to the bond values? When interest rates rise, bond values go down. So that 60-40 balanced portfolio in 2022 was down 25%. Now think about it. You have $1 million IRA. And I'm only using $1 million because it's easy math for me in my head. I'm not that smart to figure it out. So $1 million in my 401k or IRA, and it went down 25%. I lost 250 grand in my IRA in 1 year. You can't afford to do that at our age. So if you lose 30% of your portfolio, what's the first thing people do in this category when that happens? What do? You panic and you go where? To cash. Look, I can't afford the risk anymore. Go to cash and lose 30% of your portfolio at a 3% return in cash. It's going to take you 12 years to get back to 0, back to even. If you go to a 6% return, it's going to take you 6 years. If you're going to stay invested, it's going to take you almost 5 years to get back to 0, to get back to even, if you lose 30% of your portfolio. No one's doing that because they're going to cash. You're panicking. Okay? So, let's talk about math for retirees. If you lose 25% of your portfolio, you have $100,000. You lose 25%. You have $75,000 left. Most people think emotionally, well, if I just get 25% back next year, I'll be back to even. No, you won't. You need 33% to get back to even. Because now the earnings are only on 75,000, not 100. So you need 33% return to get your 75 back to 100,000. Is that going to cash? No, that's staying crazy aggressive in your portfolio. Who's doing that when you're taking money out of your portfolio? Nobody. You can't afford to do it or you're going to run out of money. Who's heard of the 4% rule? All you got to do is take 4% out of your portfolio. You'll never worry about running out of money. Right? We've heard that theory. That theory was created in 1940. Okay? Well, let's talk about that theory from 2000 to 2009, 10-year period. Again, for easy math, you had $1 million portfolio. You're going to withdraw 4% a year. You think you can take out $40,000 a year for every year, right? Because you have $1 million. I'm going to take $40,000 out every year. Well, in 2000, the S&P was down 10.5%. Now your $1 million went to 851 with your withdrawal. Now 4% of 851 is 34,000. Your income went down, not up or level. It went down. Well, 2001, the S&P was down 13%. 2002, down 23%. These are real numbers, real situations. At the end of that 10-year period, this person now has $480,000 and did not take out $40,000 at any other time except the first year. So your income went down every year for 10 years, for 9 years, and you thought you were going to be able to take 40 grand a year on your $1 million portfolio for the rest of your life. Investing in the markets in our age is totally different than investing in the markets when you're younger and building your portfolio. So, let's talk about that. We talked about required minimum distributions, right? You know how the IRS calculates them? You know how they figure it out? The 12/31 year-end balance, the year before, determines what next year's RMD is going to be. So let's say you had that $1 million IRA on December 31st of 2021. IRS calculates you need $40,000 to take out for the required minimum distribution. And you had it in that balanced portfolio. $1 million went down to $750 because it was down 25%. And now you can't just sit and let it ride it out. You have to take $40,000 out. You now have $710,000. So in year one of your retirement, you went from $1 million to 710 in 1 year. God forbid the market goes down a couple years in a row. And it does do that. You can look back the history of the stock market. There's a lot of times it went down 2-3 years in a row. It always bounces back. I'm not here to tell you that we need the markets. But for people in retirement, if you get 3 straight down years in a row, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. If you stay invested the way you are. And most people come into our office. You guys come in, I'm going to ask you to bring your statements because we're going to analyze them and see how you're invested. And most people have stocks, bonds, and mutual funds all inside of Wall Street. You're all invested. Everything's invested. And we show, when clients come into our office, we want to show you what your options are. You don't have to be all in Wall Street. Mutual funds, variable annuities, stocks, bonds, REITs, options, hedge funds. Okay, having all your money in that world means you're living up and down with the markets. Who's the best investor we know today? Who's the most famous investor? Warren Buffett. If you had access to Warren Buffett right now at 10-1 on Tuesday the 15th and said, Warren, Mr. Buffett, question for you. What's the market going to do tomorrow? He'd be like, I have no idea. With all the tools he has no idea. Well, you need to know about what your options are, how to move some money from growth and risk to safety. We have this, we call this our 3 investment world discussion. This talks about bank accounts, CDs, money markets, fixed annuities that work like CDs, accounts where you can't lose any money based on markets. You're going to get a set interest rate. We use typically these accounts for emergency funds, right? Then there are safe money options. Insurance companies offer annuities, fixed annuities that provide safety of principal, growth based on an index. Or banks are offering equity-linked CDs. What are some safe money options? And then we have Wall Street. So how we build an income stream for a client is, you gotta get, and you come in, you tell me you have a diversified portfolio. No, you don't. If your money is all sitting in these investments, you're not diversified. Every dollar in that portfolio is subject to some type of risk. What we're saying as a diversified portfolio is, we need to move some monies into safe places. Whether it's a CD at a bank or a fixed annuity that works like a CD, I don't care which one you use, but we gotta protect some of your money. And then when we divide those dollars up, and we take income from the guaranteed accounts that can't go down, I use Wall Street for income I'm gonna use 10 years from now, so I know I'm not gonna touch that account for 10 years. That account can go up and down. Over a 10-year period, it'll be higher. So I split my assets up amongst multiple different investment buckets that have a purpose. Safe money growth, safe guaranteed income for income streams, and then Wall Street buckets for longevity, inflation protection, and increasing income later on. If you're not managing your assets that way, there's a really good chance you're gonna run out of money. A really good chance, because the markets are volatile. But if I know I'm not touching a bucket for 10 years, I can afford that and not panic when the market goes down. But if all of my money is in that bucket, you're gonna panic and you're gonna go to cash, and that's the biggest mistake you can make. 3 investment world discussion. If you get a couple things out of this presentation today, you should work with a fiduciary, you better have a tax plan for your tax deferred accounts, and you better figure out a way to get an increasing income in retirement with safety and guaranteed products. Those are the 3 things we want to get out today. And those are the 3 things that we'll go over with you. If you choose to come into our office in a stress-free environment, I promise you, no one's gonna sell you anything, okay? All we're gonna do is talk about, why did you really come here today? Why did you come to Seasons 52 on a Tuesday after a huge storm that we had last night? I'm gonna say it again, the food's not that great. Hopefully it was for education, financial education. Take us up on our offer, schedule a meeting. They have our laptops here. We hate the game of telephone tag. If you think you don't have your calendar here with you, go make an appointment for a couple of weeks down the road. If you go home today and you figure out, oh, that day doesn't work, call the office and they'll reschedule it. It's gonna be stress-free. No one's selling you a thing in that meeting. We're gonna just ask you why'd you come? Let's talk about what's going on in your situation, like you were asking before. Let's see what our options are for tax planning, for income planning, for market investing, under no stress and no obligation. So with that, I'll tell them to bring lunch in. We're done. Any questions are going to be here. Ask me any questions you want. Hopefully I educated you a little bit, and